Hey everybody, welcome back to another 21st Century Renaissance and another open interest newsletter breakdown on GameStop. I'm your host, Dr. Mike LoPiano, and I'm here to wish you a happy National Cat Day. That is today. It is National Cat Day in the United States 2025, a very important day in the history of the GameStop saga, certainly with respect to our events of last year leading up to the November-December bull run, which was kicked off in part by Roaring Kitty's filing of a 13G on October 29th, very interestingly. Today we're going to talk about what we might be expecting this week, why today, aside from National Cat Day, may actually be very important for understanding what's coming up with our stock. And we'll be, of course, turning first to our continued reading from the book of Genesis. Today we're talking about the Tower of Babel. So you'll recall, right, yesterday we spent some time thinking about the inclusion of these genealogies, the introduction of the historical component into some of these stories a bit. And today we're looking at a story which is juxtaposed between the generations of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and the descent of Shem to Avraham, or Abraham. Or Abram, I guess he's initially called. So let's take a look at this story and see what sense of it we can make. Let's go ahead and make it big. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, "Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which children of men builded. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one. They all have one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Okay. So the initial impression, sort of when I read this that I get from this story is like, wow, that's weird. This God, he's kind of a dick, man. Like sometimes you're like, all right, God, what do you, what's going on, right? Why are you killing everybody? Like, why is God wiping out all the life on earth, right? Why is God destroying? Like, what's wrong? Hey, everybody's together, building a tower. Isn't that great? Isn't that awesome? Don't we love it? Don't we love building towers? Building towers sounds cool. Like, why would God do this? Good question, right? So we only have the information to go on from the story, which is points, I would say, to a particular line here in this story, and that's here, right? That's when the Lord is concerned, when the God of the story is concerned, he says, "Behold, the people is one, and they all have one language." Okay? This they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. This seems to me the key line here that sort of sets things off. And what Genesis more or less has to say is, well, humans' imagination doesn't always produce the best things. In fact, very often, if it's human beings trying to imagine things but not follow what God communicates to them, well, that can lead to some terrors, right? So this leads, for example, the legacy of Cain is an imagination in some ways that produces various patterns of behavior that bring about the destruction of the earth, right? The initial sin of Adam and Eve is an imagination, right? It is human beings using their wiles to sort of imagine that it is possible to circumvent the commands of God. That human beings can set themselves apart, that human beings can put themselves in the position of God, to be like God, in not just to be like him, So the Bible is very cautious, actually. Genesis especially is very cautious about ingenuity. It's very cautious about, thinking different and being an individual and all. Not exactly, right? I mean, it mostly has warnings to do with that. I mean, mankind does go ahead and do this. But, right, remember that the building of a city is something of Cain. It's the first thing that Cain goes and does. So this is some sort of mark of ingenuity. And what we see is, okay, as soon as the sons of Noah go out, to go repopulate the earth, what is the first thing they do? Well, they do this Cain thing, right? I mean, it doesn't directly blame them. One of them gets cursed. Let's see, we get their genealogies first, so it's not them. But their descendants are of one language, and they decide to build a city, which is something that Cain did. And this imagination thing, right? This challenging, let's say, what is possible, is something. Let's say, right, the Bible doesn't come out straight away and say don't do it, but that it may present some difficulties. I mean, God in this circumstance says, all right, well, they're doing this. I'll do this. I will confuse their language. I will confound them. And a part of this is also, right, so we see this kind of ingenuity component, this kind of engineering things in the earth, which runs risk of offending God, right? That's, right. Imagination, this runs risk of offending God. And the third thing is attempting to reach the heavens, right? So they're trying to build a tower that will reach up to the heavens. So if you try to do this, it more or less suggests this idea. Hey, if you get this idea of making sure everybody uniting everybody, go unite everybody, make everybody speak the same language, get everybody together in one big city, and then become the equals of God. Bad idea. Some people maybe are out there who want to do that. I won't name any names, but I'm sure you can find this idea out there that, there is no God, or human beings are the equals of God, or we can sort of technologically innovate our way out of, say, the natural laws that bind us, something like that. People who maybe think that the earth would be better off with one world government, or that the earth would be better if it were just one big city, something like in Blade Runner or something like that, The Bible says if you do that, you're going to run into some problems. At least it relates that historically, this one time, people tried to do that and it ran into some problems. And, there's an ideological component, which is to say that, well, we all speak different languages now because of this. So don't do that again. Or if you do that again, expect to find some difficulties from the natural order of creation as you try to do that. Something like that. Something to keep in mind as we think about a human future for ourselves. Something to think on. Something to contemplate, let's say, as we consider this piece of wisdom from our ancestors in the biblical tradition. So let's go ahead and take a look now at our discussion of GameStop for today. There we go. So yes, it is National Cat Day, and on this lovely National Cat Day, we go ahead and send our thanks out to Dude McStud once again for sponsoring today's video and article, as well as to our monthly supporters, Not Medical Advice, Kurt Lusko, Cosmotropic, Dayswag52, Cameron DeLeon, Drew Krantz, and Hey Luckies. So one of the things I was thinking about today, right? Some folks asked me about this yesterday in the comments, I was thinking about, all right, well, we had this crazy high spike on Ultimator's bottom finder, right? This is the highest spike that we have had in over 5 years. January 2020 is the last time we saw something like this. Shouldn't that mean, we're in store for some huge, mega, ultra crazy rebound, mega run? Oh my gosh, it's Moas or Sneeze 3.0 or something? Not necessarily. I mean, in the past 5 years, over the past 5 years, bottom finder flashes have, within the span of a few days, most common is 1 to 2 on the daily chart, corresponded to a move back to the upside, a bullish run of a non-negligible percentage. However, if we go back to the last time that bottom finder indeed was this high in 2020, in fact, much higher, we can see it was not really immediately very responsive. And we kind of traded flat back in 2020, for about 2 months. Maybe a part of that has to do with when it occurred in that year in January. Right. And then we got the little COVID dip, and then we got this kind of pistol formation kind of forming up here. And then flat through the entire summer into the fall. No, let's say this was earnings. Q4 earnings was here. This is Q2 in September. Yeah, which means this is Q3 in December, I guess, is here. Does that make sense? No, that's Q2, Q1. That's Q. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this over here, green tab here is Q4 previous year. This is June, so this is Q1 2020. Q2 2020 is here in September, and then we started our big move after Ryan Cohen's purchase. Back there, so really huge. We didn't move. Obviously, a lot of other signals from bottom finder going on there. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that we move immediately. And in fact, one of the things that has been the case is when we get these really big spikes, there is something of a lag in our move to the upside. So it's not sure exactly the correlation. It's not quite the bigger the spike, the longer we wait for something to move. But I will say that we're probably waiting for the official go-ahead from FOMC that we are getting the rate cut. Especially if there's a surprise. There could be a surprise. Maybe we get a 50 basis point cut. Trump's been dangling some keys about letting Powell go in the near future. Odds are we're probably getting a third rate cut at some point. Right? I'd say right now, most likely bet is another 25-point cut, about 98% odds. But another component to this, which we might need to consider, is that we have a recap state essentially coinciding with FOMC this year. So Richard Newton has been he theorized that this was really the most important component for understanding when GameStop runs are going to come, right? And essentially, if something stimulates price action that would cause the DTCC obligation warehouse to go ahead and call in obligations, call in the settlement of fails. If this coincides, if we have an event, some sort of a bullish event coincide with recaps, then institutions may then go ahead and be forced to go and clear out a number of lasting FTD obligations. So Beckett Cat as well was talking about this in a video he put out yesterday. Go ahead and take a look at that if you want a deeper dive into its pertinence to our price action in the saga. So that may come into play. Now, typically, so this was the case. I was also thinking about this kind of going into, last fall was really a dream because, I have a sense that it was much easier to see how institutions, they're a little bit bolder, a little bit careless, let's say, about exposing their moves via the options market. So I would say, a lot of folks remember, back on the Reddit days, a lot of the discussions back on the Reddit days, we could see essentially when institutions were coming in and setting up derivatives to take advantage of some of this stuff. We had lots of Friday gamma ramps when they were, milking things, taking advantage of low volatility situations. We could see when they were suppressing things, and we had, a lot of really cool moves take place as a result of that, that we were able to take advantage of. At the same time, right, we also saw this really big buildup in the options market going into this move, right? So it was really kind of telegraphed in the options market. I would say since I was banned, I wonder. I mean, I don't want to a certain extent, I wonder to what degree my banning from Reddit, may have been tied into essentially people being tipped off to the fact that we could actually see when they were going to do these things, and maybe that was messing with their moves to an extent that they were not terribly comfortable with. I have a hard time thinking it really seriously destabilized them, but I would say it's become much harder to spot these kind of moves since then, and really since kind of around the same timeline that Roaring Kitty's gone away. Now, usually back then, going into this move last fall, we could see when they were doing this type of thing, we could see them setting up these long call positions, which, it wasn't necessarily a smoking gun, but say going into the end of the week, where we could see on Thursday, if we kind of remained conspicuously flat, IV was low, all of a sudden towards the end of the day, we'd see some big long call blocks kind of come in. It's like, all right, tomorrow morning they're pumping this thing. And sure enough, quite a few times that ended up happening, especially on the 25th into October 28th. That was a really huge move. 2 times we got that intraday gamma ramp move on the 25th, and then going into the 28th. 28th was a big bullish day, and of course everyone was excited for National Cat Day anyway. But I would say for now, not really seeing that yet, not seeing institutions, right? So the theory behind this, of course, is, okay, if institutions are going to go ahead and they're going to clear out settlements, they know this is coming, they know this is coming down the pipe, they know they're going to have to deal with, rate cuts, repositioning interest rate swaps, and the like. If they know they have to deal with this, then why not, right? If they have to go out and buy a bunch of shares, and that's going to happen on the lit market, and the price is going to get adjusted up, why not also put yourself in position to capture some volatility in the derivatives market through options, which is exactly the sort of phenomenon that Reddit user Gherkinit was always talking about with respect to when the river runs dry, and the juicing of small and mid cap equities going through these volatility cycles. We saw them do this in the fall really quite brazenly. So right now, not quite seeing that. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean we're not going to go on a run following, following today's 2 p.m. Meeting, the Fed, decision on the rate cut. But I would say, basically across our chains, we're still mostly seeing calls sold at the bid, not seeing these long blocks come in, not seeing institutions go ahead and bet on long calls at this point. Maybe they're doing so in correlated equities to sort of disguise, right? If they know that there's a basket of securities that will run once GameStop gets hedged, maybe they're positioning themselves in tickers that are under much less scrutiny. But for now, right, really what this is saying is we're still basically looking like we're going to close the week below 24. Max pain values are, every week here. 2350, 2350, 2250, 2350, 23, 23, 23, 20, 23, and then a bunch of low stuff kind of way out, but and then 2027, some really, really high OI actually out in 2027 for January and December. And it's all at 23, everything. January 15, 2027, 23, 23, 23, 23. Everything at 23. So very, very strange to see this. Maybe this is something, right? Maybe this is meant to lull folks into a false sense of security, into a bit of a slumber, create something of a bear trap here coming off that volatility we had on Sunday, only for a bunch of positions to get blown out should we then go ahead and start to move up following the decision here from FOMC. Really, that's what we're looking for. If there's a surprise, right, then maybe we really start to move. Last year, it was the case that we started to move following rate cuts right the 2 days immediately after. We started to move up big in GameStop. This year, this year too. The cut resulted in a very sizable move to the upside. So, in fact, we can take a look at that, right? So, let's close bottom finder right here. Close PMO. Yeah, PMO is also looking okay. It's not crazy. We're not in like a kind of a doom spiral. The white line's kind of leveling off. We could easily, if we get a move back up to like 24 something, then I think PMO is going to start to, our two bottom lines are going to start to move with us, and then we can start moving back up here, at least into the 26, 27 range. Yeah, right. So we had earnings. Obviously, earnings was good. Back on the 9th. It's right here. And then we had FOMC on the 18th, I believe. No, 17th. Yeah, and then we got a little bit more juice out of this guy. So, maybe something similar begins here, heading into institutional filing deadline on November 15th. That's what we've been looking forward to. So these are what I'm looking at. This is what I'm monitoring. Still optimistic about seeing some volatility come in early November, going up to the institutional filing deadline. But of course, need to keep monitoring the situation, which I will be doing as always. Certainly looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow and a live stream on Friday. Going to be a good week, regardless of what happens. So thanks very much, as always, everyone, for watching and listening. Please enjoy your National Cat Day, and let's see what happens. Let's go GameStop. See you, everybody.